you have to train heavy to grow. Heavy equals muscle, and light is just toning. You know what? The science doesn't back that up. As a matter of fact, the science shows that you can train light or heavy and add muscle, but it's intensity that's the key. My name is BJ Brahmachari. I'm 55 years old. I'm a natural professional bodybuilder. And I want to thank you for joining me today on Age is Just a Number. We are going to find out today that it's not about light or heavy. It's about effort and execution. Here's what the science tells us. There was a meta-study that showed similar hypertrophy gains with 30% all the way up to 85% of 1 rep maximum, as long as the sets were taken close to failure. Now let's talk about what close to failure means. That's anywhere between 2 to 3 reps in reserve at the end. So you're almost done, but you're not quite done. We have episodes that we've done specifically talking about that. I'll put a link to it here and you guys can catch it. But what they found is the heavier loads, if you just went heavier, there was more of a strength improvement for sure. However, the muscle improvement was similar whichever way we did it. Now, why is that so important? Because as we age, one of the issues becomes joints, tendons, ligaments, and the heavy lifting, unless you're going to be a power lifter or enter a powerlifting competition. And this is great. Somebody just sent me this article on a man who's 90 years old and set a record in a powerlifting competition. So it can be done. But if that's not you, and like me, you've got some joints that you've maybe not been so kind to, so you have to do some things to work around. So for me, lifting heavy just doesn't make sense because it's so hard on my joints. And I'll give you an example. I used to, back in the day, squat really heavy. And I would squat heavy enough on a Saturday that my knees would actually hurt until the following Thursday. And I'd almost hobble around up until then. My knees would just start to feel better on Friday, and I would go back and do it again the next day on Saturday. And eventually I just said, this doesn't make any sense. I want to do this so that I can be healthy and strong and fit. And so unless you're looking specifically for strength gains and only strength gains, you don't have to train super heavy. Now let's talk about some things to make it relative. You still need to push some weight. You can't just pick a weight that you can do. Maybe you want to pick a weight that you can do 50 reps with, but you still need to get to that 2 to 3 reps in reserve. That's a long way. And I can tell you from times where I've trained and kind of misjudged the weight and I've gone too light, and my first thought was, this is going to be really excruciating by the end when I get to that 2 to 3 reps in failure. So the research shows us that either works. However, the lighter weight with more reps will be more forgiving typically on our joints and on our ligaments. And as we age, that's really important. And for me, as I said, this is why I don't train super heavy anymore. Now, there are some heavier components in my training. There are some lighter components in my training, and we'll talk about the whole picture as a whole. So what are the benefits of training heavy? We're going to increase our strength, which we talked about already. We're going to simulate more fast twitch muscle fibers. That's where we get explosive power from. And it's more time efficient. Obviously, you're going to take less time in the gym when you're training less because of the heavy weights. So that's a big one. Now, what about, there's some concerns or some cons to training heavy, especially as we age. And the number one is the risk to the joints, risk of injury. And that happens from form breakdown, right? So that's number 2, is form breakdown as we age. If our form isn't good and you're going to lift heavier weights, you're going to get hurt. Maybe not on the first day, but you're going to at some point. And let me tell you from experience, it's no fun at any age to get injured. Okay, and number 3, it requires longer recovery windows. So you might actually be out of the gym for a longer period of time just because your body is recovering. So who then should be training heavy? Okay, I would say number 1, if you're if you're going to be in a powerlifting competition and you're specifically doing that, that's something that you want to train heavy for. But that's a different, I think that's a different entity entirely than what we're talking about here. As we're talking about, you're like me in your 50s and you want to be fit and healthy and live your best life and be there for your kids and your grandkids and these things. So, okay, so there's the power lifter side of it. It also is beneficial for advanced lifters, but who have no injuries or injury histories that they have to kind of deal with when it comes to the heavy lifting, okay? And the second part of that is maybe there's a place for heavy lifting in your program, but it's for a part of the year. I would say, again, as we're aging, it's not for the whole year. It's even, for me, it's just a short period of time. If I'm just heavy lifting, trying to max lifts and things like that, I actually have taken that completely out of my training program, that I'm trying to get 1 rep maximums or just train with just the heaviest weight that I can safely manage. Let's talk about the benefits and the risks of training with lighter weight, because there are some risks associated with that as well. But the number one benefit, the biggest benefit, would be less joint stress. And obviously that makes sense because you're not putting the joints under as much stress from the heavy weight. Okay, number 2, it's generally easier to maintain strict form when the weight is lighter and more manageable. And number 3, and this one is really, to me, the one that puts it all together, is you will still gain muscle just about the same as the heavy lifting if you train close to failure. So that's 2 to 3 reps in reserve that you're stopping the set at. Okay, what about the cons? Well, long sets can be mentally fatiguing. We just get tired in our brains, okay? Number 2, there's less carryover of pure strength. So if you just want to get stronger, this is not necessarily the best way to handle that, okay? And number 3, it's sometimes too easy to stop short of that true effort of 2 to 3 reps in reserve. Okay, so this kind of training is best for, I'm going to say, people like me, because I have injury history, I have joint history. So it's best for people with any kind of injury. It's also good if you're looking to do some deload time. And I can tell you from experience, it's really hard for me to deload, but I do it knowing that it's good for my body. But it was just a mental thing for me to think, okay, I'm not going to train as heavy. I'm not going to do anything, as hard. The weights are going to get lighter, and this is a good thing for me. Okay, so if you're deloading, that's obviously a positive there. Okay, what else? You get a lot more time under tension. That means your muscles are being forced to exert for whatever you're doing for a longer period of time. So for myself, I'd call it a hybrid approach. So I incorporate all of the aspects of it, where I lift with moderate weights, and I'm usually somewhere in the 8 to 12 rep range most of the time. Every once in a while, I'll put in a heavy set, which will be like 1 to 3 reps. And as I said, I'm very careful about training that heavy because of my joints. Every once in a while, just as a mixing it up, I'll do like a rep day or rep exercises where I'm just looking at anywhere from 12 to 20 reps. As a matter of fact, I did that just this morning. And because I have a little tweak in an elbow, it was perfect for me to do lots of reps today to ease off the elbow. Okay, so some action steps. You're like me, over 50. Maybe you're in your 40s, but let's say you're in your 50s or your 60s and you're wondering, okay, how can I apply this to right where I live right now? So number 1 action step is make sure that you are always using good form. Can't overstate the importance of that. So number 1, make sure you're using good form, and with that good form, get as close to failure as you can into that 2 to 3 reps left in the tank for every work set that you're doing, okay? Number 2, track your recovery. So that means soreness, stiffness, how do the muscles feel, and generally, we don't want to go back and train a muscle group while it's still sore. If you have issues, your joints are a little sore, maybe an extra day off is something that you should consider at that point, okay? All right, number 3 is, rotate the workout phases so that there's, a heavy section lifting kind of component, maybe there's a moderate lifting component, and there's more of a rep component. And you have to figure all that out based on what's best for your body and how your body's going to respond to that. For some of you, you might say, the heavy lifting doesn't work for me at all. Well, the great thing is, what we've seen from the research here is the heavy lifting is not necessary for you to add muscle and for you to get stronger. Now, you're not going to get power lifter strong from moderate weights, but you're going to get stronger and you're going to be able to get around, and that's what we're always talking about, okay? And number 4 is we always want to focus on progressive overload. So I think of it this way, is I always look to make micro improvements from workout to workout of a certain body part. So maybe it's 1 more rep. Maybe it's a half pound more, but I'm always looking to do a little bit more. Maybe where I failed or stopped, where I was in that 2 to 3 rep range the last time, I can get another half rep out that's more than the week before. But I'm always looking to make minor changes along the way. So always look for that progressive overload, and that protects us too from going to the gym and just mailing it in, right? Let's say it this way, that you don't need to lift like you're 25. We just need to train smarter and recognize that we can still make quality gains in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. If you're watching today and you got some value out of what we talked about today, why don't you subscribe to the channel? It helps us out, but I'm going to help you out too with giving you good quality information and just, straight ahead stuff like this. And these are things that I'm applying and doing in my life too. Because, for those of you that are in your 50s, as I said, that's me. I'm 55 years old. I'm a single dad. I have a business that I run and things like that. So I get where you all are coming from. So give us a like for the video also, and that helps with the YouTube algorithm and all that good stuff. And tell your friends. If there's somebody you think would get some value out of what we've talked about, let them know. And thank you for joining me today. I'll see you next time.